From project reviews to incredible interviews, along with the general things in Web3, CraigO's Crypto Corner covers the space in a fun and engaging way. We dive in so our listeners can conceptualize, plan, strategize, and implement their very next move. We are quickly becoming a platform that enriches and supports the overall foundation of Web3. In order to grow, you need your voice to be heard. If you have infinite curiosity, then CraigO's Crypto Corner is just for you. Come join us.
You're tuning into CraigO's Crypto Corner, the best in Web3, blockchain, NFT, and cryptocurrency technology. Great reviews, incredible interviews with the leading people in the Web3 ethos, and just the general things Web3. First, I want to acknowledge everybody from Twitter Spaces, Facebook, and YouTube Live. I so appreciate that you've come here to join us on CraigO's Crypto Corner. I want to welcome in first my co-host, Mr. MetaMat Trades. How are you in the metaverse, my good friend?
Good, good. How you doing? I love the studio layout you have there with the new celebrities there with the 37K on YouTube. I saw that huge video, the Mighty Morphin Rangers from Downtime TV. Got to give them a little bit of a shout out. Come on.
A big shout out to Downtime TV because that was how
huge.
Everything works, and that's how this studio looks incredible. We even get the air horn on that. And might I say, there's a beautiful lunchbox in the back from our good friends over at Cryptoys. They sent me a beautiful lunchbox. Let me tell you, I'm bullish on that community. There's a handful of them, as I was telling Sophia, one of our special guests today, about Cryptoys. I'm really excited for all that Will's done, and he continues to accomplish with his amazing team. But Matt, I first want to start off with our daily, weekly Ralph update with Ralph Quintero so we can get him out of here. There's a handful of items to talk about. So let's first welcome in Ralph. What's up, my friend?
What's up, Craig? What's up, Matt? Nice to see you guys, as always.
How you doing?
You know, I dig for credibility in this space. And Ralph, I just wanted to start off on the first thing, and then I'll let you kind of take it up from there. You know, the other day there was a talk in our JPEG Morgan group on this project that had launched, and it was for a good cause and everything. And I saw it, and I was just thinking, okay, I could quickly move some money over, and I could actually grab this. And before I knew it, it was minted out. And then before I knew it, the Twitter page was down, and I'm like, I call it the cancer rug. For a handful of reasons. One is because it's toxic. Two, it lacks credibility in the space when things like this happen. And three was the reason it was supposed to be supporting someone's cancer fund so that they can get well and have the money to do so. So,
look, yesterday was a dark day in this space, and in my opinion, I've been around since the very beginning. It's just been. You know, look, we've all gotten rugged at one point or another. I think it's a rite of passage in the space, but to get rugged on something where somebody used cancer as an excuse and it was a social engineering rug too, right? So this person didn't come out of just nowhere. They had entrenched themselves in the space for some time, had already sold some art in the space. So when they made their plea for help, you know, the people who had already collected that art, which included some pretty high profile people in the space, went out and stuck their necks out. And unfortunately for the space, for all of us, it turned out to be a pretty significant rug. You know, layer that on top of some of the other stuff that we saw yesterday, like, you know, influencers just straight out asking for ETH on the promise of maybe an airdrop. And then, you know, when other influencers and other people in the space started seeing that people were actually sending ETH to wallets, some of them just started asking for ETH. I saw one guy ask for an iPhone 14 and got it. So, like, I mean, that adds zero credibility to this space. It actually makes us look bad. It just feeds the media fire that, you know, with all the negativity that we've been seeing in this space already. So we already have some pretty big hurdles to go, you know, over, tied to regulatory environment and a bunch of other stuff, to then have to deal with this too. You know, and there was a tweet I shared this morning, which is like, how do you bring on your friends to this space when they're seeing this kind of stuff? It's like, yeah, come on in. We're just going to steal your money. So, you know, it's up to all of us to do better, to be better, and to help clean up this space so that we could bring people in safely and they can have an enjoyable experience and really help Web3 develop into what we all know it can be.
Do you think the bad actors will be called out? So, for instance, the ones that were asking for ETH, and again, I try to mitigate or minimize where my focus is right now as we're building this platform and creating quality content. So I wasn't as much in the crux of that news. But with the ones that were asking for ETH, that's going to hurt their reputation. Do you think that it will stop them forevermore, or do you think that they'll continue to press forward and rebound, unfortunately, from it? Because I think that to me is a death move. By asking,
whoa, no, I actually disagree really quick. I disagree. I think it was a meme. It's a meme. Like, it's like buying Pepe. It was a meme. It was like this one guy asked for, hey, send me ETH to you get nothing.eth, and you get nothing, and people just started sending it, and it became a meme, and people got onto the trend, like memes, it's like Pepe was or is, and people started sending, asking, doing the same thing basically. I don't think that I think half of them were probably joking, like not actually expecting anyone to actually send them anything. So I wouldn't call anyone the devil.
People did, Matt, right? Like, people actually sent money to those. Like, the difference between Pepe, like, I totally get the meme ability aspect of it, right? I'm never going to argue with you on the meme side of things, right? But with Pepe, you were literally getting something in return. Now, whether what you got in return went to zero immediately, like there was actually some form of exchange of value, where this is like literally some dude saying, "Send me money," and I don't know if I'm more disappointed. I don't know if I'm more disappointed. Right. And my point is, I don't know if I'm more disappointed in the people asking for the ETH or the people sending the ETH.
That's it's like if I just put a tweet up that, hey, like, here's my bank, like, send me money, and someone does, it's not on me that they are dumb enough. Like, and I said, hey, and you will get nothing in return. I don't think it's on me.
Guy, Ralph, that said, give me your seed phrase and I'll keep the money.
Yeah, I mean, it's
talking to. I love him.
That's exactly what we're talking about, right? So, like, I just think it's disappointing, Matt. Like, I get, like I said, like, I get the whole meme ability aspect of it, but like, some of this stuff goes a little too far, especially since this space is still so relatively new. Yeah, that there's people that are like, oh, I get an airdrop, like, and what they've heard about airdrops in the past is that some of these airdrops turn into like multi-million-dollar opportunities. And you never know, like, one of these may, but still the likelihood of that happening and the negative connotation that comes out of it, I don't know.
Okay, last question on this, and then let's move on from it, because obviously it's great that we have a difference of opinion.
And I love it. We can do this for the whole show.
I would love to.
No similarity between a meme coin and somebody asking for ETH. Sorry, Matt, you're not going to win that one. Pants the rug, since it's my show. Last word. Pants the rug. That individual who did that, built that social currency, created, and then the attention economy, and cashed in on it, and they're out. Do you think they'll come in as someone else and do it again, or do you think that it takes a longer period of time for them to build up and be the POS that they were in the first place to do this?
I mean, technically, we don't know who this person was, right? No. So they could come back tomorrow and start another social engineering scam, and actually we've seen it with people who we know that have actually rugged people, serial ruggers that come back into the space and do it all over again. Do you want to talk about Azuki? Nah, let's not do that.
Why do that?
I feel like during the bull run, there's all these NFT projects that came out and said, we're going to do this, that, whatever. And people sent them money and got these NFTs that are now zero. I think that's more of a scam than someone saying, hey, give me money and I will give you nothing in return, and people give them money.
Matt, sorry, Matt.
I don't know, Matt. I still think that an NFT that goes to zero, you got something.
Before we for our guests, let's talk about just two additional things. What are some other things that our listeners shouldn't be aware of tonight?
Look, there's this huge art movement going on right now. It's been going on for several months, and I'm sure we'll talk about it later on in the show. But last week, we finally had an art blocks mint out, which we hadn't seen in quite some time. Tomorrow, I think I have 4 or 5 upcoming art drops that are minting tomorrow. So there's a lot of exciting things going on. I'm paying a lot of attention to what's going on in the ordinal space. I know some of our guests tonight can dive into that a little bit more because OCM is doing a great job with that. But I'm paying a lot of attention to what's going on there. The number of inscriptions continues to rise meteorically, so I'm pretty happy about that, and doing everything I can to learn about the space. And I encourage everybody who's listening to do the same. And I'll be putting together some guides and stuff that could help people along the way.
Oh, I love that. See, that's value from the Daily Ralph. And by the way, before we continue to move forward with this, Tony, if you can do that screen share. Every single week, Ralph Quintero comes on. He gives the weekly update because the daily update comes in your inbox email every morning, absolutely free. Daily Ralph is a 5-minute or less read. It's easy. You just subscribe, go to his page. We have all these pinned tweets. It's super easy to do. Ralph, this is awesome. Ordinals, the art movement, art blocks, the mint out. And I'm really excited to see what artists are going to be coming up. Off the top of your head, last thing before we go into our intro, give me 2 artists that you're most excited about, top of the head.
Oh man, you put me on the spot. There's so many.
It's not favoritism.
No, it's not favoritism, but I think that there's just a lot.
You guys gonna have to subscribe to the Daily Ralph if you want to know what artists are coming up. I get it. I love it.
I don't necessarily want to showcase one over another. I want to pick favorites. They're all like my kids.
It's my job on the platform to say who's excited, who should pay attention, but that's why they got to go subscribe, Ralph. Isn't that correct?
That is correct.
All right, let's get to it with our intro. And Matt, I love that we have a difference of opinions. That's just me.
So Matt wasn't here at the beginning of the show, but I actually have to skip out in a little bit. So I'm not leaving because we had a difference of opinion.
I
will come back next week. So
I know you're just like me. Like I actually prefer people who have a difference of opinion on, because like then we can,
I love it.
Talk about things,
Yeah. Imagine it. By the way, we have a society where we can have difference of opinion. We embrace it and we respect each other. And that's powerful. And that's what we do on CraigO's Crypto Corner.
That's right.
I'm ready. I'm hyped. You ready, guys? All right. In this exceptional episode, I have the privilege of engaging with 2 remarkable leaders in the Web3 space. One is a trailblazer in the realm of wallet security, consistently pushing the boundaries of technological innovation. The other is an esteemed member of our OCM community who has dedicated her efforts to leading the charge for the Small Grants Committee that enables community members who apply to capture funding for their Web3 businesses, community, and brand building initiatives, along with philanthropic endeavors. The Small Grants Committee is a group of 4 elected members from our OCM community that were all voted in by OCM token holders. Throughout our conversation, we will embark on the enlightening exploration into the intricacies of decentralized autonomous organizations known as DAOs, the groundbreaking development of a network wallet application designed to safeguard users' digital assets during the process of buying and selling crypto and NFTs. Now, Sophia is committed to both building and enhancing our on-chain monkey community. I am looking forward to learning more about her experiences and discovering the triumphs and tribulations that have shaped her journey alongside our cherished OCM. The on-chain monkey's ethos revolves around not only benefiting the token holders, but also making a positive impact. It's also felt around the world through Sophia's extensive global endeavors. She truly personifies this philosophy, embodying the idea of doing well for the holders while doing good around the world. Isaac is an invaluable member of our esteemed JPEG Morgan family. With his exceptional talent as a developer, he is currently gearing up to launch his highly anticipated Shield3 wallet app, designed to offer seamless accessibility on both PCs and mobile devices. As an expert in DAO's safety and integrity, he serves as a safeguardian who regularly speaks and educates on topics concerning DAOs and the treasure security. To all the passionate enthusiasts and savvy traders listening, I cannot stress enough the paramount importance of ensuring your safety when engaging in the purchase and sales of NFTs and cryptocurrencies. By actively participating in this conversation, you are taking the significant step towards safeguarding your valuable assets. Remember the wise words of our esteemed colleague, Mr. Stephen Millers. If it's not your keys, it is not your cheese. Avoid falling victim to the hacking attempts or inadvertently clicking on malicious links, as these actions can potentially result in the devastating loss of your hard-earned crypto investments. GNGN, Sophia, and Isaac, welcome to CraigO's Crypto Corner.
Hi, so happy to be here, Craig. Thank you so much for having me on.
Absolutely.
Hello.
Welcome.
Great to be here.
It's great to have you. And what we're going to do is, Sophia, we're going to focus heavy on a lot of things that you're doing at the beginning. Towards the tail end, we're going to, toward midway, we're going to start to engage a little bit with Isaac. And in between, I'm going to work between you guys just to get some opinions because, as we know, DAOs, Isaac is not a stranger to, and then also want to get some of Matt and Matt's opinions. And probably maybe about another 5 minutes in, I'm going to just grab Ralph for one last word of the day because he's always right. And Matt is always wrong. So let's start in our first thing. Someone or something an experience in life that one person has who inspires us on this path of greatness. And I'm really speaking to you, Sophia, on this, is a positive impact for those around us. Sophia, I want to first talk about your uncle and how he impacted your life, because without that experience, tonight wouldn't even happen, and your involvement with the On-Chain Monkey would be non-existent. There would be another Sophia, but it wouldn't be you.
Absolutely. Yes, that's 100% true. I've been really blessed with an amazing family, and my uncle has been a just pivotal role model in my life since a very, very young age. I remember he started taking me to arts and crafts shows like across the country when I was like 5 years old, selling the bracelets that helped us immigrate to the United States from Argentina. And my uncle was always an out of the box thinker. I think he was just born that way. So he started traveling the world at a very young age, and was really interested in connecting people who had kind of shared visions, shared missions, all focused on making the world a better place. And that image screenshot that you just showed about Friendly Favors, that's the longest living directory in existence today.
Wow.
It started in 1999. It started with a Rolodex that he had been creating for over, 20, 30 years. And we call him a cosmic networker. He just has this amazing ability to connect people who have shared, interests and who could benefit from collaborating together to actually make a significant impact. So I remember at the age of 16, he took me to the State of the World Forum, a conference in San Francisco with leaders of the world, the Dalai Lama, Gorbachev, Jane Goodall, Muhammad Yunus, all of these people. I was 16 years old. I was in high school. And that just changed the entire course of my life. I dropped out of high school. A week later, I started the community college and had a very unique, academic experience since then. But, he always taught me that our networks are our most valuable asset.
Yeah.
And that really has been like part of my core belief system since childhood. And so that was really, we can talk about how that led to On-Chain Monkey, but basically I've been Prime my whole life. So when I heard about On-Chain Monkey, it was like, that's it. That's where I need to be involved.
That was the thing that captured me with On-Chain Monkey at the very beginning, or it was in November of 2021 when I saw the rescue mission and they were going in, and I said, wow, at that point I was spending $2,500 on that one. And I was like, what made me compelled to purchase this JPEG with the smart contract? And it wasn't money. And I look back at that and I'm like, talk about the psychology of money and with this purpose. And the reason I shared your uncle's website is because it's a very old website, but the thing that it made me think about, and as a lot, is your network is your net worth. And you are only as powerful as those that you're surrounded by. And I did notice, by the way, and we're going to do a quick screen share in just a second, Tony, but I did notice Ralph hopped out. MetaMatt, you're going to owe him an apology. You're going to owe him an apology. All right, let's do the quick screen share because I do want to talk about the OCM DAO and the Small Grants Committee. So if we can pull up that screen share, that would be great. And then I would like you, Sophia, just to talk to us a little bit about this. In the Treasury, the overview. Let us know how is the Small Grants Committee? How does it operate? And what are we looking at right now? Because this is one of your screen shares.
Yeah, well, if you skip forward a few, I think that might be a better place to start. So the OCM, one more. The OCM DAO is basically like a vehicle for the vision and the mission of On-Chain Monkey to be able to move forward and catalyze really the passionate community members that we have and empower them to be able to pursue their passions. Our core values are all aligned. Everyone's unique. Everyone's different. There's a variety of different skill sets within our community. So the DAO is really about, catalyzing positive collective action, like empowering people, providing the tools that they need, the resources and the support, and also bringing people together. So someone might have a great idea. They submit a request and we're like, there's another member in the community who is working on something similar. Why don't you guys collaborate? So there's a lot of opportunities that the OCM DAO can provide for our community members.
Yep.
And it's kind of split up into, if you can bring up that image of the 3 different houses,
Yep.
It's
I
split up.
I don't know if we have that one. I know the houses that you're talking about. Did I show that before? No.
Maybe not. It was the fourth slide in there. But
You know what?
basically, if you can find it, that's great, just to have a visual. But basically, the OCM DAO is currently split up into kind of 3 different sections.
Yep.
The small grants committee in the image is like the small house, you know, and that is where 4 community members are elected by the community through a large scale vote of the token holders. And they're elected basically because they trust. That's exactly it. That's the image. Because they trust our judgment. Because something that I think is super common in the space is voter fatigue. Like, no one in the community is going to be interested in voting on a daily basis on a variety of small proposals, you know, and smaller scale ideas. And so the small grants committee kind of takes on that responsibility. And we're working with a tool called a proxy governance tool that was created by 2 guys who won the first round of Prop House, which is the other part of the DAO. And they created this tool they basically designed it and adapted it to work specifically for the small grants committee. So during season 1, so I've been blessed with being able to be with the small grants committee since its inception. So season 1 and season 2, both through votes. And during season 1, we really worked very, very hard with this team to design the tool to be able to effectively and efficiently process requests, have it be fully transparent for everyone. Anyone can go onto the proxy, you know, website and see exactly what's been submitted. They can see the correspondence that we've had with the submitters and also what was the result of the vote.
Here's the really cool thing. So you know, this was my first time voting, by the way. I think it was this past month. I voted for JD's prop from Seekers of the Eternal. He has a children's book. And it was the first time he said, hey, if you wouldn't mind, he reached out. A few other people had reached out. And I just love what he's doing. We've had him on the podcast. Thanks to you. And we talked to Seekers of the Eternal, a great community that matched the blueprint of on-chain monkeys. So all these really cool things and these intricacies that are working along the way, the connectivity. And what was fascinating are the behind the scenes, the networking to then have people vote, right? So I hold one full DNA set, and then I hold a Genesis on its own with the gold background, Bitcoin background. And I think to myself, how cool is it that I have a certain number of votes? Then I also think when you talk about the small grants committee, you're not going to have whales voting on every project. And then also you're going to have whales that are either going to partially delegate or designate some of their votes, which is possible. And you don't like my hands? You like my hands, Tony?
But I love your hands, Craig.
I love your hands too. So I think what ends up happening is people don't vote enough, and that becomes a challenge. And when they don't vote, things don't happen the way that they should, or the person who should have won didn't. And I say won, meaning granted. So is that something that you guys behind the scenes, are you watching like collectively of the community participants and the holders? I mean, it's, like voter turnout when it comes to politics, and we won't go into politics, but not everybody votes. A very small segment of our population does, yet it's so vastly important and you've got to do it. And people have strong opinions, but a lot of people have strong opinions. They're not going out necessarily to exercise their right to vote. And it's sort of the same way. But I think the politics behind it, like the calls that were made, hey, did you do this or did you do that? Or some of the whales, whether it's our community or another community, how do you think that they're engaging? I mean, because whales have a power of vote. Is there a certain number of votes at a certain point where it's not fair, right? Is it capitalistic mindset, or is it crony capitalism, as Tim had talked about, where it's sort of an unfair advantage and you just rule the whole board, and every time that you come on, you're going to win? There's no such thing as the ideas around DAO fair play. What do you think around that?
I think there's a lot of things to unpack here. In the on-chain monkey community, we're really lucky because we do have a lot of whales, but they're all good actors. They believe in the vision of on-chain monkey. They're interested in doing good, doing well. And so in that respect, we've been really lucky that when the whales are voting, it's not like they're all coming together to try and sabotage the project. Like they're really acting in good faith. And that's something that we're incredibly lucky to have in the On-Chain Monkey community. Correct. Because everyone really, and also the community itself kind of self-regulates. Like we were talking about having low voter turnout, the community like reaches out to people and is like, hey, go vote. You know, we need to meet quorum. Like Prop House is a seasonal thing. And then we have a large scale prop area where in order to pass anything, it needs to reach quorum, which historically has been 2,000 votes. And that can sometimes be difficult. We haven't struggled in reaching the quorum up until now. On-Chain Monkey has actually broken all of the records in terms of voter turnout for the majority of our large scale votes, you know, by massive amounts. So when it comes to whales, you know, they are beloved and occasionally they are resented by different people. Two sides of the same coin.
Right.
But I think as long as they're good actors and that they have the best interests of the community and the project in mind, which we have, thankfully, they are beloved in our community. So in that sense, you know, it's important. But for other projects that maybe don't have the same quality community, there should definitely be some sort of checks and balances in place. There's a lot of different dynamic voting mechanisms that can be implemented. I think it's all very dependent on the specific project, on what they're voting on in that particular case. You know, in some cases, it may be appropriate to have one person, one vote. But at the same time, you've got to consider you don't want to alienate people who came into a project being promised a certain utility and then change that, because our word is so important, you know.
I think there's a delineation between equal and fair, right? Because I don't think it's always going to be equal, because I might have more monkeys and monkey voting than you do. But how we vote as a community, how that's decided, should be fair play. And so I want to just switch over to Isaac real quick, because I know that, you know, DAOs are sort of a part of what you do in your ethos and a lot of the things that you talk about. What are your thoughts on what Sophia's saying so far? And is there something that you would want to add to this?
So I totally agree that, I mean, delegation is super important. It's like very impressive the amount of voter turnout that they've been able to get, because like a lot of the times with DAOs, people come in and they start it and then they think like people are always going to be this excited forever. And then a couple months pass and it's like somebody in a Discord or in a Telegram chat saying, hey, would somebody please vote on this proposal? Like, we have money to give out as grants. We really want to do something with this. But like people just lose interest or they move on to the next thing. So I think having that consistent core team and a group of delegates and engaged community is just incredibly impressive. And I'm also, I also just want to emphasize that, you know, governance is more than voting. Like there's this, like voting is the result of like, you know, having to go to the community and like perhaps discussing a contentious decision. But the fact that there can be a committee that's making decisions day to day, reducing voter fatigue, and allowing the community to delegate properly, to me, those are all really great things, because we don't have like, you know, direct democracy for every single decision. We delegate, and that's very important because there's like millions, billions of decisions made every day. Imagine if we had to like poll absolutely everybody. So I love the delegation of responsibilities. Something that I'm also curious to ask about though is like, what happens when a community winds down? But one of the things that I was interested in studying in the DAO space is like, how can you set up a community from the beginning so that if there is something that happens or if there's some sort of massive takeover, how does a community either like wind down effectively or never kind of get into like a capturable state? So I'm just, I know that's a little bit of a vague question, but like I've always wanted to know, like, could you design a community like this from the beginning such that there are certain rules in place that it can wind down elegantly if and when people move on to the next thing? Like that's having been through many communities that went through that, like those phases, is like, how do you think about the wind down phase of something?
I'm gonna let Sophia answer that in her thought for a second, but I just wanted to, I mean, as we see with the cancer rug and we see all these other things and maturity, or the lack of maturity in space, like I think when we value relationships and we have transparent conversation, real conversation where we connect, right? That plot, plan, strategize, implement our next move in Web3, which is all that we try to do. I think because of a lack of communication, not because of intelligence. I mean, we see smart people every day doing really stupid stuff. But I just want to make a repeat on what you said, which I thought was really important. Governance is more than voting. And then you said decision-making is through the community. And it's about delegating, not direct democracy, which is really cool that you expanded on that. I also want to just talk about one other, actually, before I do, Sophia, what are your thoughts before I go to our next point?
So I think that it's really important for, the space moves so fast. It's really, really hard to keep up with everything that's going on. And a lot of decisions and structures that are put in place are based on like the current circumstances in whatever the project is. But I think it's really important that there be some people involved that are thinking about the long-term situation. So in the situation where kind of a community winds down, they should have pre-thought about, how to implement checks and balances in order to protect, the governance, the voting mechanisms that are put in place. What you talked about, this dynamic voting designation, I think is another really important thing that a lot of communities haven't addressed because they're just so busy dealing with the day-to-day. But there's a lot of people who believe in a project, are invested in a project, have a lot of votes, but don't have the bandwidth to keep up with all of the things that are being developed and the votes that are required. And so in those types of circumstances, I think it would be very beneficial to be able to delegate your votes to a trusted community member. In order to, especially in situations where quorum is required, or also to represent, like the SGC, them trusting our judgment. If there's community members that you trust their judgment, delegating your votes to them, that could be very beneficial to kind of address some of these issues like voter fatigue. Some people will never be tired of voting. The majority of others will get tired of voting. So putting in those checks and balances ahead of time are really important.
And
MetaMatt,
okay.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Isaac.
I was just gonna say, it's not just about even like the health of the community. It's even like a security thing. Like some of the if you go into a community with the assumption that everybody's always paying attention, you might design the rules in such a way that that makes it so that you need voter turnout or you need quorum to make sure that certain things happen. And what if everybody goes on vacation? That's just
lucky
it's a tangent of all the stuff that you're talking about. But I just love thinking about could we build in these conditions where it's we don't get quorum for 3 proposals in a row, therefore our funds go to some sort of predetermined trust which will do something good with the funds, where it's you can make these communities in such a way where with the speed of information in crypto, you can have it so that you can set out all of your intentions from the beginning, and you don't end up with a static thing, which you're not there. But in the event that years down the line, just setting all that stuff from the beginning is, I think, one of the coolest things about crypto is you can code all those rules into what you're building.
And I would also say this, and again, you're the person that understands the coding on a smart contract level, but I would say rules are forever changing so long as they're positioned in fairness in mind when you're setting the rules initially. So the idea of fairness is really what's important. It's not the ideas around equality. You challenge equality so long as fairness is in play. When fairness is not there, everything else is irrelevant. And I do want to hear what Mr. MetaMatt, my co-host, has to say. Meta, are we going to agree on this? I just want to know.
Yeah, no, I mean, no, when it comes to DAOs, especially in the NFT space, any financial space, I come from the stock market space. You never know what's going to happen a year from now, 2 years from now with the market. Trying to time or even just tell the future in a market like the NFT space or the stock market space or any financial space is just impossible. But I have a question though. I heard Thread guy, he had a Twitter Spaces. He had a big announcement saying he's running for, I think it's the Ape DAO. I'm curious what you, Sophia, or anyone here thinks about the importance of having like someone who has a big following, like Thread guy. He's a huge Twitter Spaces, 300 to 500 people every day. Is it important to have somebody like that on the inner circle or the council, or is it more important to have people who understand how governance works and all that kind of stuff? I'm curious what y'all think about that.
Sophia?
You know, I think there's pros and cons to both of them. I mean, having someone with a large following incentivizes and motivates more people to be involved. And so that's a good thing, right? Because we're working in a space where attention is everything. So being able to involve someone who can attain and retain people's attention is incredibly valuable. At the same time, do you want to have someone involved in a position of governance who doesn't understand the intricacies of governance? So depending on, I don't know much about Thread Guy's experience in terms of that type of position, but as long as he's well-intentioned, he's willing to learn, he has some sort of basic understanding and has trusted, community members he can talk to, get feedback from, and can guide him, then, it sounds like something that could be a positive. Again, time will tell. We will see. We're going to learn from this massive experience that we're all living. But I do want to bring up a really important point, and we keep talking about fairness. And I think that it's really important to note that people's definitions of what is fair is very, very different. Like a whale who has 350 tokens is going to think something is different than someone who has 1 token. And so how do you cater to all of those diverse perspectives within the community and do your best to reach some sort of consensus that people find fair?
Is spending a lot of money on a project, does that really mean that you should have a better say than somebody else, though?
I mean, it just depends on
Are
the
you
rules
smarter
of the
because you have
project,
more
right?
money? Are you smarter because you spent more money on it?
Wait.
That's up to the project.
Notion that someone's smarter because they spent more money. I might just challenge the idea that whenever there's a negotiation or a contrast of opinions, so if I have all of these on-chain monkeys and I'm the biggest holder, which I'm not, and I up to this certain point, so I think the idea of dynamic. Oh, what was that? Everybody okay? I'm good. Everybody okay?
We're good.
Something happened.
The idea that I should be giving up a certain amount of votes, to me, would be understandable. And again, that's my idea of fair. Like, I want people who don't have as much. And you say, well, Craig, you only have but 4 monkeys, so who are you, right? But if I owned a lot in a project, and I could buy up a lot more monkeys, guarantee you I could. Now, mind you, I'd probably be financially, I'd have to have a robo and ramen noodles, but I could do it. But the biggest problem is, it's the idea that if you can't help someone else up, I go give a hand up, not a hand out. So if people have come into the community and they've spent, say, for instance, someone's $5 is equal to my $100, or my $100 is equal to someone else's 1,000. If we're all looking at it as a percentage, so I'm giving 5% and the person who has $5 is giving 5%, we're all giving the same and we're all coming up together. Now, I'm not saying everything's fair, everything is equal, but that to me seems like an idea for fair play. Now, you might find that someone who's a pure capitalist and they say, well, no, I have the money. I control the board. I'm the one that gave those jobs. I'm the one that keeps this project propped up. There's probably no talking to that individual. And it seems like they might have to go to humility class, because money comes and goes. I know a lot of people who have money and are completely miserable. And I don't want to get too far off track. And I know a lot of people who don't have an awful lot and they're really happy. So the idea of balancing out, because what does money give us? Money gives us more options. When you have more voting power, you have the power and the privilege to afford other people to allow them to come up. And so maybe that's a higher level of consciousness. I don't know. That's my thought. Isaac, what are your thoughts around that?
So I think a lot of this is a lot of these issues come up just based on like not having a clear enough constitution from the outset. So a lot of DAOs that start with just like, we're going to do stuff with like money's going to come in and then we're going to have tokens and we're going to decide what to do with it. If there isn't some sort of like checks and balance system, then it's pretty easy to see how a system like that can go off track from what the original people intended. Or perhaps it's an economic experiment that they did intend for it to see like what would happen in these in this kind of in this no rules world. So I think that there's a lot of opportunity to create these systems of checks and balances, to create systems of accountability, and to really be clear about what exactly it is that you're doing, and what the intentions are, and what happens if we detect like things that are things are like going off the rails. So because we need constitutions, we need like, we're basically rediscovering why government is structured the way that it is in some way, where it's like we need some systems of checks and balances to make sure that these things operate as they should, and we don't intermingle if we don't want to, like economic capitalist market forces with like a social giving platform.
Yeah.
Like these are things that are separate for a reason.
Yeah, and majority wins, and we want to see that fairness is always at play. Sophia, I want to come back and I want to focus with you on a couple of things, and we will talk about the Constitution DAO. But I was in a Twitter Spaces leading up to this week. I think it was actually last week when I was planning this podcast and reached out to both of you and said, "Hey, you know, I want to do sort of I want to do a hodgepodge. I want to bring you and Isaac from our JPEG Morgan group, and I want to bring you and Sophia from OCM, and I want to kind of fuse it together, create like a fun, engaging podcast." And thus far, I'm pretty happy. I do want to bring up AJT from Illuminati Truth Labs. He's going to be coming on in a few weeks. And he said something that it spawned my ideas around DAOs. And so he said, so I was on the Twitter Spaces and I heard him say dynamic voting, designating part or all of your voting power or others in the communities. And how do we make voting fair for all? So we covered that part. The other thing that he said, and I thought it was an interesting strategy, and Sophia, I'm curious, is we should shame. I swear, these were his words, and I'm curious. I'll bring him on, and if I'm wrong, I'll correct it. If someone has a certain number of votes, we should shame them if they're not voting. We should call them out, or we should say, hey, if you're not going to use your votes, you click this button, designate it to somebody else. Because I can't say when I first got into On-Chain Monkey that I was like, first off, I didn't even know what a DAO was. Second of all, unless my friend reached out to me, I wouldn't have voted. So that would have been 6 votes that I would not have used otherwise. So I think it's about having people engage, understanding that it's safe to connect your wallet to vote, which I think is another big thing. Because I said, Jay, is this safe? Craig, it's safe. Are you sure? Because this is my wallet where this is my baby wallet. I protect this. And I don't want my stuff, not your keys, not your cheese. I don't want to end up like that. So what do you think about the community in a professional way? And maybe that's what AJT meant, and I'm going to ask him. But what do you think in a professional way? You reach out to the community, to the whales in the community, or you put out an alert on Twitter and Discord, right? Crypto Twitter. And you say, hey, if you hold this many and you're not voting, maybe you don't know about it, maybe you don't even care, and that's fine. Here's what we want you to do is just take a few minutes out and designate your votes to someone else in the community so that we can help to build and evolve, because you're holding and suppressing those votes that are so badly needed. What do you think about that? I got my hands again.
I actually think, and this is going to sound silly, that those types of decisions to implement those types of checks and balances and structures should be voted on by the community. If that's something that the community actually wants to implement within their project. So, just coming up with it. And I don't like publicly shaming. I prefer to stay more on the positive or neutral side. I think that our community already kind of like does that in their own way by reaching out to people personally and saying, right, hey, this vote is happening. Like, please vote. You're a whale. You've got so many votes. Like, we need your participation. And they do. And again, that goes back to the fact that we are lucky enough to be working with good actors. Now that has been great, so far, but a bad actor could come along at any point. And so if we don't think ahead and implement these sorts of checks and balances that can be agreed upon by the community as a whole before these decisions are made and implemented in some sort of like authoritarian way, I think that we're still going to kind of be sticking with the traditional informal communication and encouragement, not publicly shaming, but publicly encouraging people to vote who have large holdings.
I think it's kind of like, if you've got, ants in your house and you want to get rid of them, you just spray the radon, versus maybe diverting them, keeping them alive and letting them go into nature, right? There's 2 approaches. So while I understand your approach, I also can understand his. Now, mind you, it's kind of like the alarm bell in the morning, someone banging a pot and pan over your head going, hey, Sophia, wake up. Hey, it's good morning. Good morning. 2 very different approaches. But I think the problems around voting is obviously maybe whales or other people in the community that hold a certain number that are not voting. And then obviously not enough people voting altogether.
Well, shouldn't that all be determined ahead of time, though? I feel like you're putting money into a project that you should know the what ifs. before investing into it.
You can't know everything that's going to happen ahead of time, though. Like the flexibility,
right?
The flexibility in allowing these organizations to experiment, figure out what works, figure out what doesn't work. Like that's like the problem with some of like the more rigid on-chain DAOs, where it's like there's no room for experimentation, and then you can get stuck into a situation where like people end up figuring out, okay, this thing can't evolve anymore. Let's figure out all the ways to exploit it. And then we have things like there's on-chain bribery markets. Like you can just earn yield by delegating your tokens to someone who's just going to give that's going to earn you bribe money to vote on whatever proposal they want. And like that's the thing those are the things that happen when you have a system with absolutely no checks and balances. Yeah, if you have some tokens that you're not using, you can like put them into a bribe market. Like these things exist, and therefore like that's why we should be careful about creating systems that are too rigid, and maybe not shaming, but maybe you could experiment with something that's like your vote weight does decay over time, the less active you are, and it like gets more weight the more you vote. Like you can experiment with something like that, but do that within a sandbox where you're not painting yourself into a corner and making it so that you can really hurt yourself by like experimenting with the wrong incentives. Like experimentation is a good thing, so that we can like figure out what systems work best.
I guess as long as you like say ahead of time, hey, we're going to experiment with your money and let them know ahead of time that this is an experiment. So I feel like a lot of people in the bull run were not disclaiming that, I guess, ahead of time.
By the way, there was Upstream, and then we're gonna come back to you, Sophia. Upstream just launched their DAO token this past week. It was minting. It was like this dolphin. I forget what the purchase price was, but it's a DAO class, and it basically everything DAO related. And Upstream is really really cool. What is it Upstream with from Truth? I'm forgetting the name. So this is actually a token that they launched. I'm gonna find it up. It's up something. Oh my gosh. So anyways, the token is connected to the teaching of these classes over a certain period of weeks. And the more you participate, the more rare that your token at the end of this program becomes. And I think I've never heard of a bribe market. The things that we learn on this podcast are just, it's phenomenal. Sophia, I want to come back to you really quick. Social currency, right? So in preparing for today's conversation, you mentioned the words social tokens. Let's use On-Chain Monkey, for example. How does social tokens and On-Chain Monkey, how do they exist?
So, I've been on the crypto journey for a while, only got into the NFT space at the end of 2021. And I was getting a lot of my knowledge from Real Vision, their media company in Raoul Paul. And he kept talking about social tokens are the next big thing. We're all speculators. We're like, what is it? Metaverse? Is it DeFi? Where do you invest? What is going to be the greatest growth? And he kept saying social tokens are the next big thing. And this was something that I kept thinking about because social tokens, again, going back to, my uncle's story, it's something that's existed historically, always. Now we have the technology to really accentuate and empower what those social tokens can do and what the communities who are part of those social systems can do. But basically, when I was at this conference, I heard Bill Tai speak. And he's talking about NFTs, which I had just completely dismissed for over a year, just thinking that is so silly. I don't want to get involved. He started talking about On-Chain Monkey and what it was, what it meant, what the vision, the mission, the purpose, the type of community, the types of initiatives that they had done to do good in the world. And I realized it clicked for me at that moment. I was like, NFTs are social tokens. This futuristic concept of social tokens is already happening right now in front of our eyes. And so if I'm going to get involved in social tokens, which I kind of think of in terms of, it's like a membership to a club of like-minded individuals, a social community. When I heard about On-Chain Monkey, I was like, that's it. That's a social token or NFT project that I want to get involved in. And that's where I want to focus my energy, because the previous journey with crypto, focusing on, the investment part of it, whether it be DeFi or metaverse plays or whatever it may be, there was no social dynamic involved. Like I was on this journey by myself. I was learning by myself.
Yep.
The choices I made, I didn't really have anyone to communicate with. And this is, it's more fun. It's more engaging.
Yeah.
You get to learn from all of the people that surround you in your community, as well as, you know, in other like-minded communities. And so On-Chain Monkey for me really was like the epitome of a social token. And I don't even want to call it a project because it's so much more than a project. It's a business. It's an organization that has the capability of changing the world for the better. And the core values, doing good or doing well and doing good, all of these kind of fundamental aspects that brought me into On-Chain Monkey are the reason that I became so passionate about it from the beginning. So for me, social tokens are not only like the future, they're the present.
Yep.
And I believe that the way that we see these things is going to evolve so much in the coming years. Like right now, they are really centered around NFTs. But these social tokens, these groups of individuals that are empowered through the blockchain technology that has been become so prevalent over the years and will only grow exponentially. I think it's going to look completely different. I don't even know if NFTs are going to be a term that we use anymore.
No, and by the way, maybe it is social tokens. And I want to just throw this idea to you guys, right? So right now, you know, we've had more money that has been printed than in the history of ever printing money. And our US dollar, if we're all honest about it, wherever anybody stands, is incredibly weak and is challenged. And we've got a lot of things going on that aren't so good at the Fed level. So the way that I see my digital assets is I look at On-Chain Monkeys, and the monkeys that I own, I see it two things. One is the utility and access to highly intelligent people, having great conversations, critical thinking skills, business builders. But I also think about it this way. Just like people have silver and gold, people have digital assets. When you talked to Ralph last week, we talked about, I think it was Christie's auction house in 1 week did $750 million in sales in art. So what people are doing is they're diversifying their assets. And the way that I see it is I want to diversify, I want to hold. I also want to invest in things that I think are trailblazers, such as, like I said, Cryptoys. Their ecosystem hasn't been opened or played with. Every toy that you purchase is $39.99. That will probably not change for the foreseeable future. They have not opened their marketplace. They continue to evolve and experiment. And what we see with On-Chain Monkey is sort of something similar. However, their marketplace, their secondary sales, their fungible bananas that you can buy merchandise with, other communities, how many great businesses from the prop house to the midsize, and then obviously to the DAO, the Big Grants Committee. How many proposals have gone through, have affected great projects that are now going to continue to build over the next 5 to 10 years. 10 years from now, they'll be like, oh, how'd you guys start? Oh, yeah, Small Grants Committee, or we did this. I mean, that book that JD launched, that children's book, which is OCM inspired, I can't wait to read it to my kids. Yeah. And it's pretty phenomenal to see all the talent that is inspired in our OCM community. So when someone goes, hey, Craig, do you think that buying an On-Chain Monkey is a good purchase? Well, I ask, if you have a short-term mentality, this isn't for you. You should be thinking long-term, and you should also be thinking, I think the bigger value is not the money you make, but the knowledge you have. How many people made, I know a lot of people who, I don't know what to say, smart, not smart, made a lot of money, and some of them blew it. Some of them were emotionally intelligent to walk away. I think that's the biggest intelligence when you were playing the meme coin game, because we messed around a couple times and we found out, We've covered a lot, and I think I love how you talked about how Bill Tai inspired you. But I do want to talk about organizational citizenship behavior. Organizational citizenship behavior. Can you unpack that for us? Because that's something that we talked about offline.
Yes, so that's something that I had the opportunity to learn about during my doctoral studies at the Kelley School of Business at Indiana. I didn't finish my degree, but I had an amazing experience there, and was able to work with one of the seminal, thought leaders in the space called Philip Podsakoff. And basically, organizational citizenship behavior are all the discretionary behaviors that employees do within an organization that go above and beyond their basic job requirements. And so you know, we've all seen this throughout our lives constantly. You're in school, everyone has the same requirements, but there's always those students who go above and beyond, the ones who are the leaders in the class, the ones who put all, you know, in group projects, they put all the work together, or they kind of nurture the non-native English speaking students, or in organizations, you know, in traditional corporations, there's always those people who support their colleagues or support the mission of the organization in general, and really go above and beyond. And so those things, when organizations have higher levels of organizational citizenship behavior, I'm going to refer to it as OCB moving forwards because it's a bit of a tongue twister. But when they have higher OCB, employee satisfaction is higher, retention rates are higher, the success of the organization, you know, they're more profitable, they just are healthier organizations and lead to longevity. And so this was a concept that really fascinated me, because just like, you know, when I heard about On-Chain Monkey, things started clicking for me and I was like, this is it. I felt the same way when I learned about organizational citizenship behavior. I was like, oh, this makes sense. I hadn't heard about this before, but I have, you know, hundreds of examples in my life where I've observed this and I didn't know where it came from. So by learning about organizational citizenship behavior and the indicators and the variables that lead to increased OCB, as well as all the benefits of having high levels of OCB, which is beneficial to everybody, I started observing this in the Web3 space. I started observing these behaviors in the community. So I'm starting to think, okay, this is not just corporation based. This has to do with any organization. And our communities are not just passive, you know, token holders who are sitting back. I mean, some are, but there's a lot of heavily engaged community members who are exhibiting high levels of OCB. And is it because they truly, is it financial incentive that's leading them to stay up late at night?
No.
I don't think so. I think that there is, you know, this really internal, deep-rooted desire to do good, because the core values of the project that they're involved with, in this case, On-Chain Monkey, is so deep rooted that there's intrinsic motivation to contribute value. On top of that, you know, the relationships that have been developed within On-Chain Monkey are so powerful. I mean, countless people in the community can say that the friends, the people that they've met within On-Chain Monkey have become true real life friends in their day-to-day life.
But it embodies the one word of family, right?
Family.
So, you know, Isaac and I connected through our JPEG Morgan family and what he's developing. And by the way, I can't wait to unpack Shield3 and talk a little bit about that and the ease of use. And I remember saying, you know, I don't know if I want to hook this up. How do I do? And he made it so simple. So when I think about how people are connecting, how they're building relationships, people that go above and beyond to give of their time, right? Because selfishly, yeah, Small Grants Committee, they want to continue to do more projects. You want to continue to see people do well and be successful. It makes you look good. You know, as Isaac gets ready to launch out Shield3 to the general public, you know, the more people that he's talking to, the podcasters, connecting with all the right people, maybe I'm one of the right people, is that it then has other people promoting and saying that this works, or this is something that I believe in, and in the email notifications. And I was so happy to learn about a new app that will actually safeguard my assets, because as we said, these are cherished, prized possessions, and some of them have emotional connectivity. You know, not all of them will give me money back, but I have my first NFT that I ever purchased on Nifty Gateway in my wallet. And I'm going to keep it there forevermore because it reminds me of my day one at the Web3 job, right? I want to talk to you a little bit more about when you entered your graduate program at Seton Hall, and you studied international relations and diplomacy with a regional focus on Africa and specialization in negotiation and conflict management. And I think about how that skill has helped you. And I want to get a little more context from you. And we talked obviously about OCB and the higher OCB, how important that is. You know, when I think about negotiation, we're seeing it every day in this space. How people are connecting. Are we appreciating and respecting each other's time? Are we getting our message out there? Are we clear communicators? Is there something more about that before we talk about the mini hackers, which I thought was a really great story?
Yes, absolutely. So I think what my graduate studies, because I also did an MBA at the same time, there were a couple things that they taught me. In terms of diplomacy and negotiation, one of the most important lessons that I learned and was solidified, if we had time, I would give you some examples that are pretty cool. But one is, you really have to get to the root of why people believe what they do. If there's disagreements, the ability to listen to them and get beyond like the conflict of I want this way, you want that way, but to let the energy, try and get the energy to calm down, and then have a conversation where you're truly invested and interested in hearing, why do you feel the way that you do? What is the background that formulates this strong opinion that you have that is maybe in conflict with mine? So that's something that we were trained to do. The diplomacy program was training us to work for, the government or NGOs, the United Nations. And those are all very bureaucratic systems.
Right.
And I'm an out of the box thinker. Like, I'm all about like creative thinking and crazy ideas and experimentation. And that's another thing that I learned during my graduate studies was, it's great to be this way and to have these ideas, but you also need to learn how to present that information within certain structures and certain types of, organizational structures, bureaucracies, whatever, like figure out how they work.
Yep.
And then figure out a way to present your idea so that it can be well received and heard and is aligned with, you've got to understand what people's intentions are.
Yep.
And so if you can present it in such a way where you align and there's mutual benefit in that way, that was a really important lesson that I learned.
We're going to talk at the end about mini hackers. I mean, I'm looking at our time. We're about 9:32. We're good. I want to give like a good 20 plus minutes to Shield3. And this is amazing because there's so much that I'm learning tonight. Like, I like the ideas around OCB. So what I do want to talk a little bit about, and congratulations. Did I hear that you're part of the Dimensions family, that you're going to be able to mint your ordinal?
Are you talking about the first 300 list?
I am.
I am. And actually, JD, who you mentioned earlier, he got on the list today. So we were really excited about that. So yeah, it's an amazing community. We've already got a Twitter DM group going on. It's super exciting about the Dimensions and the first 300, apparently they're going to be dropped in a completely new and revolutionary way on the Bitcoin blockchain. And for me, I think what's most exciting about this is Bitcoin has traditionally been a store of value.
Right.
And now with the Ordinals protocol, Bitcoin can store value as well, or valuables as well. And that's a really giant shift in how the Bitcoin blockchain has historically been used and the potential in the future to store valuables on the blockchain. So the fact that the first 300, they are going to be minted straight off Satoshis from the first month of Bitcoin's existence.
So I want to roll this over to Isaac real quick. Isaac, all right. So I never imagined last year if you said, "Hey, Craig, there's going to be an NFT marketplace on Bitcoin," I'd be like, "Bitcoin's Bitcoin. That's gold. Nobody's going to bother. It's all Ethereum. There are all these other blockchains." Are you surprised, or did you kind of see? Was there writing in the was there writing on the board that you're like, "I saw this coming, Craig. This just made sense. This is only a natural progression of our space."
It certainly has been building. Like I remember when I got into the space, like Ethereum already existed maybe for like a year or so, and I was like a software developer, like figuring out where cool stuff could be built. And I just remember being kind of bored with the options that you can do on Bitcoin. Like you could, I guess, coerce it to do something interesting if you really wanted to, but Ethereum was the place to be if you wanted to like write smart contracts and do cool stuff. And so I really like that, you know, the Bitcoin community can do something more interesting than before. But like, this is not a first. I mean, there's a whole system called Counterparty. I'm not sure if you guys have messed around with that, where you could already have like that. That's how like the rare Pepes and stuff existed. There is this whole weird in a good way, like sub community of the Bitcoin world, of people that have been like running all of these experiments about how we can use this infrastructure to do stuff more than just store value and transact stuff. So when ordinals started popping up, it seemed like, you know, the Bitcoin diehards like opportunity to jump into the type of market frenzies and excitement and memes that people were doing on the Ethereum world more. So I'm excited for more experimentation as always. But yeah, like they've been experimenting for a while, but like it's cool to see this starting to take off.
All right, so I want to kind of wrap up a little bit with you, Sophia, and then we're going to engage you on some of Isaac's stuff as well. This has been a lot of fun. It's kind of interesting to watch how people will work off questions answered, you know, how to reposition those things. This is kind of fun for me tonight. It's a little bit of a fun experiment. Do you agree with that?
I think for all of us.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is fun.
Yeah.
All right, so I look at traditional finance, TradFi, and I look at decentralized finance. And I think, can they, and I'm going to post this to you, Sophia, and give me your like 30-second. And then I want to get Isaac, I want to get your 30-second. Can traditional finance and decentralized finance, can they work off of one another?
I think 100%. I mean, I think it's actually crazy that they don't, because excuse me, the blockchain has allowed, you know, with decentralized finance and these smart contracts, for things to be automatically executed where you don't need a trusted third party. And so traditional finance could continue. I mean, they're not going to want to lose power. And so I think one of the ways to not lose power is to really embrace these new technologies, like smart contracts that is so crucial within decentralized finance. So it doesn't make sense to me that they would never kind of merge in some way. You know, it's not my area of expertise, but I did, you know, read a lot about this over the years and was very invested in DeFi during DeFi summer. And I just think that absolutely traditional finance could benefit from, you know, a lot of the structures that have been put in place in DeFi to make it more effective, efficient, transparent. And obviously the decentralization aspect is something that I think is crucial, because right now our financial system is very, very centralized, and you only need one large point of failure for the entire system to collapse. And so those are my two thoughts.
So long as we keep printing money, you know, you just one has to wonder, you know, Isaac, what are your thoughts around this?
So I'm of quite a few minds on this. Like one thing is like, yes, people look at traditional financial markets and see like the giant like leg that can get kicked out from the stool and fall down of like these giant like centralized issues. But honestly, when you like really dig into the decentralized finance protocols, there are also these like critical dependency vulnerabilities that can cause these whole systems to crumble. And yes, they're more transparent and they're easier to audit, but only if you have a very specialized set of knowledge and understand what's going on. So I want to just like set the mood that like, yes, decentralized finance can be more transparent, but it is not by being decentralized, it is not necessarily devoid of like also having these like major dependencies that can cause the whole system to crumble. Like in fact, that happens often. So that's why we need the level. In some ways, we need like some level of rigor of like transparency and understanding of how these markets work to come to the decentralized finance world. And on the counter to that is that the more that I've talked to some friends that have like gone into the traditional banking world rather than like the crypto banking world, the more I realize like just how degenerate the traditional banking world is, even if it's like government bonds and the way that all of these markets are structured. Like I think that they would be friends, and I think that they won't be able to resist much longer, just kind of joining these things together, because it's the exact same type of people doing the exact same types of things, creating all sorts of immense amounts of risks for other people. And hopefully we can create something actually like useful out of it.
Yeah, I mean, think about it. Come July, I believe you'll either have the Fed Now program with a government crypto, no thanks, or Bitcoin. I'm going to go with Bitcoin. It's totally cool. I'm for certain regulations and laws in place, but Web3 and Web2 are very similar, right? If you get good people with good intentions, good things are going to happen. If you get bad people with bad intentions, bad things are going to happen. So how do we expect? And someone's like, "Is the metaverse? Is it safe?" It's whatever human beings make it, and so they make
but
it.
The nice thing is we can program it. It's hard, but there is a path to programming it in such a way that when these things fail, they fail elegantly. Like, we can make it so that systems don't completely collapse and crumble like world economies, if we like really understand the terms under which money is being issued, the way that interest rates are being set. Like, there's ways of doing this in a way that is more understandable and transparent and fair, versus there's this image of the people deciding interest rates are just like wizards in a boardroom divinating the future. Can we make that a more regulated, automated, regulated cybernetic organism that operates properly?
Well, it's all about control. In order to do that, we just take control over the other current system, and that's the big thing. I mean, traditional finance right now, it's led by the market elites. It's led by people who have a lot of money. Even the stock market, people who are trading options every day, they're not making it move up or down. This people who have the whales out there, the market manipulators that they call them. They're the ones that are really making a big difference. So I think that with DeFi, the control is in the power of the people, which I think that the current situation going on in the government, or whatever you want to call it, probably doesn't like to see. So I think the biggest thing is how far is DeFi willing to bend in order to let traditional finance allow them to get into the current system, or is it going to be a fight where DeFi and traditional finance fights, and one of them wins and one of them doesn't? I'm curious to see what happens in the next 3 to 5 years.
Yeah,
just a critical thought, Isaac and Matt and Sophia. It's not the people in government that control the government. It's the people outside the government at the highest levels that control the government. And so we've normalized, when you see a bank failure next time, you're like, oh yeah, of course. That's just it's not normal. What's going on is not normal. It's not okay. And a lot of people are unfortunately suffering because of this. And so it's us to be cognizant. And so when I think about the social token, Sophia, as you say that yields a lot of power. It's how do you transition that? Remember, bartering is the oldest form, right? I have a cow, you have milk, we exchange, or you have eggs, I have milk, we exchange. There was bartering before there was money. So when we think the ideas,
we don't have to go down the rabbit hole too deep, but
we won't.
Oldest form of money.
I was going to jump into
the oldest form of money the oldest form of money is credit, I would say, rather than part. But anyway,
I'm fine with that. So what you say credit is, I'm going to let you borrow my cow.
Margin,
right? It's a social construct, exchange of value, and it's systems of credits and temporal considerations for that. I just want to drive home that just because these systems are decentralized or run on a blockchain does not by default make them better. You can program in all of the influences and all the bad things about the current system the same way that you can program in incentives that are more fair and structured and transparent. So it's on us to not only use blockchain technology, but to use it in a way where we're trying to experiment with different forms versus just because it's very, very easy as a developer, as a community member, it's very easy to fall into well, this is how I'm used to power structures working, so that's just how I'm going to program it in my smart contract. It's really hard to break out of that. That's why we see systems like this, or bridge failures, market failures that echo the traditional banking world. It's because it's hard for us to create systems that are entirely different, but we have to try.
So let me just.
I'd love to say something here. Is that okay?
Of course.
So I think we're looking at it kind of from a binary perspective. You've got traditional finance and you've got DeFi, but I think we're ignoring a really important, third element, which is alternative and complementary currencies that are very community and social token based. And so, as you said, DeFi has, a lot of the same problems that traditional finance has. They have the technology maybe more advanced. they can learn a lot from each other. But if there are the same root fundamental issues are still there and the cracks in the foundation are still there, then we need to open up the conversation to other parties who have other insights to bring into creating a less dystopian, financial system future. And so that's where it's really important to talk about these thought leaders, these visionaries in currencies, complementary currencies, who have maybe figured out some dynamics that aren't established right now in these two binary examples that we're using. And so again, diplomacy, opening up the conversation.
I love it.
Bringing in more viewpoints and trying to build something better.
Sophia, that's amazing. No, and I agree with you. I think it's how we look at it, always challenging our thought or idea. And before we get to Shield3, I want to throw this last one to you, Isaac. When we say credit, give me one example of credit, since it is the earliest, and I don't disagree with you on that, but give me an example of like early credit. What does that look like? Give me a quick example.
Early credit is just like recording, contributions to the community. It's like you have this local community that has dependencies on each other, and you can, once a community grows to a certain size, it's hard to keep all in your mind, like who's done what. And so that's when you start to like write things down and figure out like, okay, we're going to have some system of account to figure out who's done what so that we have some equitable system. Because if you imagine your family unit, you're probably not like, if you were just your own family on a world, you're probably not creating some system of currency to keep track of like who's done what for each other, your family. But let's say that you now have like 5 neighbors. It's hard to keep all of these things in your head as far as like who's done what for who and who's pulling their weight. And that's where these systems of credit emerge. And that's what you end up like starting to denominate in something that's becomes liquid when you exchange between communities. And I'm just like stealing an entire history of money from like a book that I read. So like I'm not a scholar on this, but it's a story that made sense to me.
I love how you connect that. I call it, sometimes it can be called marriage. Right? Is I can fold laundry and then my wife will leave dishes and I'll be like, why am I having to do this every single morning? And I'm recording it. And then I'm like, well, what have you done for me come Friday that would have helped with my time? I'm the laundry folder.
Whether that's healthy or not, like, but it does happen.
I think early examples. And then it would go from credit, then it would go to bartering. But I agree, like there had to be some system of recording what you've done because you're contributing value and credit came together. I think
it's a matter of how big your community is. Like how many people can you keep in your head? Like, can you keep 150 people in your head? Maybe can you keep 5,000 people in your head? And that's when you need to abstract things. And like, so
I still think it's
like the chicken. It's like the chicken and the egg almost.
Yeah, you have an egg. Why don't we switch? Because I need the chicken, you need the egg.
Which came first?
Or the chicken came first. We know that. As far as evolution is concerned, Tony, can we do a quick screen share? I want to talk to you about Shield3. Isaac, when I saw you drop the message in our group and, I was like, okay, how do I use it? What do I do? Why don't you give us a quick brief view? I'm just going to pull up real quick my MetaMask, okay, as we're doing this in real time. And if you just,
we're going to avert your eyes.
Yeah, don't worry. I won't show my, we're good. All right. So, cool. All right, perfect. So now I am connected on this main net where it says Shield3. Talk to us a little bit about this and how it connects in the email, because I thought it was a great tool and how it will notify me if I do something wrong and how you guys will reject a transaction.
Sure. So this came to me as like, I was completely dissatisfied with just like the level of like security tooling with what I was doing in the space for the last few years. I was signing random blobs of data. I was like hoping that the website I was on was doing the exact thing that I said it was going to do. And then eventually I started like heavily relying on these like simulation services that were helping me decipher exactly what I was about to do before I could do it. But then like, just to me, this is not something that is going to make the space accessible. You need to have if we make this whole Web3 space so complicated that we have like none of the assurances that we're used to when we're like spending money in the Web2 world, we're never going to achieve any sort of adoption. Like if we're having people, if like when you went to pay your bill at a restaurant, if it came out to you and you had no idea how much money you were going to spend and you just had to trust the restaurant to charge you the amount of money that they said they were going to charge you, like that, nobody would use their credit cards at a restaurant. So I was thinking like, what can we do to make spending money, interacting with Web3 apps feel as familiar and safe as we've gotten used to, whether you're using a credit card. but without compromising security, without taking control of your keys, without doing anything to compromise the space as a whole. So what we ended up creating is this, basically it's this thing that sits in between your wallet and the blockchain, and it makes sure that everything you're doing is what you're intending to be doing. If we detect that you're interacting with a known hacker, if you're spending way more money than you're usually doing, what we can actually do is, like, even if you sign the transaction, block it, send you an email and say, hey, do you actually want to spend this money that you say that you're trying to do? If so, yes, okay, we can send it on. To me, it's almost crazy that this experience hasn't existed in Web3 because we're all so used to this in Web2. We spend money on a credit card when we're traveling, get a text from the bank that says, hey, are you in an airport in a foreign country? Yes, okay, swipe your card again. This doesn't exist in Web3 right now. We wanted to figure out a way to bring that experience to Web3, where we can not only, like, we can block, we can triage, or we can just help you understand what you're doing in the space. So that's where the inspiration came from. And what it ended up being is like an incredibly easy thing to integrate, where it's as simple as changing your network from like mainnet to Polygon. You just change from mainnet to mainnet protected by Shield3. It's as simple as that.
And you go about your business. And I use it for my PC. I try to keep, I still go with security through obscurity, so I won't say every little thing I do. And I grabbed that from Josh Ung, so big shout out to him. To me, it was very easy. I set it up. I get an email notification. And then for there, I just verify that it's my email. So if I make a transaction, it doesn't immediately get approved. It then goes, if there is an issue, will I get notified? How fast does that transact?
Exactly, yeah. So it's all real time. So like you don't have to change your behavior at all. It's just like when you're on a Web3 app, just make sure that you're on the protected version of mainnet. It's kind of like look for the lock symbol in your browser, look for the VPN signal like in your toolbar. It's as simple as like, are you on a protected version of mainnet, or are you on the do whatever you want, your mistakes are your own mistakes version of mainnet? And so I feel a lot more comfortable having my wallet connected to something that first, it doesn't even add any lag. It's just like, just check to see if I'm doing something that looks crazy. And if so, block it, send me an email and ask me to double check. Yeah. Like that's the simplest flow that it just, yeah.
Isaac, the biggest mistakes happen when people are tired. They're not.
That's when you're stressed. Yeah.
They have FOMO. I've had lots of FOMO. Right. And now we practice JOMO, you know? So I think that's a really good point. And it was very easy for me to use. How do you get people, right? And I'm sure you actually are creating some video content to show people easily, because I think this space, even for degens like myself who love it, want to, do mint this, mint that, I always feel my safest minting or purchasing on secondary or a platform that is trusted, or one of my friends like Sophia or maybe Meta has gone in and they've done it. I'm like, oh, you guys jumped in the pool? Good. I'm good. That's the link you used? All right, cool. But I don't want to be the first one in the pool and be like, hey, Craig, so how's your wallet looking? Pretty empty. I don't want to be that guy, right?
And that's like just the benefit of like of the fact that all of this data is transparent and we can see who's doing what. Like we can look at a contract and see, like, is it only a bunch of reputable addresses interacting with this contract, and is the code verified? And therefore, like, we're like, okay, yeah, probably don't need to flag, block, or triage this. Like this looks fine. But then if it's like, let's say that you get some message on Twitter that's like, hey, don't miss out on the airdrop, and then you go to the site and you interact, and like very quickly you're able to see, like, does this thing match a pattern of something that's either not legitimate, or was there some sort of attack, like where they introduced some code into the front end that's like causing you to do 2 transactions instead of 1? Like it's very hard to understand that as an end user, but it's actually, I wouldn't say easy, but it's possible to do it when you have all this data. And that's when we can like take all of the data from everyone and doing everything on chain and score and say, okay, this looks like a risky address, this doesn't. And that's how we can know, like, should we block it? Should we email you? Should we text you? Or should we just let it through? So it's just, yeah.
And I asked on my MetaMask, right? I said, okay, I've got this many wallets, and there are just different ones. Certain ones are imported, certain ones are under the same seed phrase. Again, obscurity. And I said to you, if I make a transaction from another wallet that's imported, will it record it? And you said yes. And I think for me, most people wouldn't assume that. And so I feel like there's so much nuance still in this space, whether it's a community, whether all the things that we talked about, a DAO, and there's so many things. Again, I think OCB will be sticking in my head because, again, I like to do good, and I'm going to look back and I'm going to be like, wow, there's so many more things that I know about DAOs after tonight. but also wallet security. And when you took me through that process and said it's very easy, you connect your wallet, this is how you do it. And then every time that I go into that browser, I see that I'm connected into that, and it's easy. I just can do the transaction, and it will notify me very quickly by email, hey, we declined that transaction. It feels to me like a credit card. A fraudulent charge comes through, you get a notification on your email or even a text, an SMS. That to me is the same value that Shield3 offers. And you operate, and let's talk about this. You operate at a network level, not a contract level. And tell me what the difference is.
So our service works before your transaction even goes on chain. And so the way that this works is there needs to be no changes to the smart contract. You don't need to install any new software on your computer. It's just an intermediary. That's just like a little helper. And like one thing that I think is important to think about in this space, when we talk about DAOs, when we talk about security, is we have to be very respectful about what attention we're demanding from the users of this space. If we're expecting everybody to get like a master's in computer science to understand how to interact on blockchain or financial degree, that's not going to work. So like, I don't need to understand how SSL encryption works to see the lock symbol in my browser and know that it's probably okay to enter my bank information. Or I don't need to have like a degree in network security to know that if I'm on like a coffee house Wi-Fi and my VPN is turned on, that I'm a little bit more protected. And so like, how can we bring these like calming or these like attention respectful things into this space to make sure that it's accessible and to make it so that you don't have to necessarily understand the intricacies of contracts, networks, wallets. You can just transact and know that you're probably, hopefully, not going to encounter a disaster around the next corner.
Or have friends like you and Sophia, and then I'm good. But I think it's normalizing these things. And so when you first shared it with me, just like my story with JD, I'd never voted before, and it was so cool after I did. I felt proud of myself, but I felt like, wow, that wasn't hard at all. And then I think in this space, there's always something new. Every day I'm learning something new, and that's really exciting. And then I'm humbled by what I don't know, like what's around the corner. Tomorrow, I'm going to learn something new that I didn't know today or tonight. And I find that really interesting. And I think when you talk about sensitive information, right? So when you think about wallet addresses and transaction details, here I am in front of my computer. I know how to turn it on. I know how to go into Word. But what if Word wasn't there? And you said, Craig, you're going to have to create a program like Word. Well, you're SOL. You know what that means. So I think there's like a balance of knowing enough to be effective, but also appreciating the people like yourself, who do the wallet security, who've created it at a network level, or the intricacies of the small grants committee and understanding the tool that was working well. And then you guys had a couple challenges and you had to revamp, but knowing those challenges before you and whoever was able to create those tools. We don't need to understand that, Sophia. What we need to understand is that it works. You have an engaged community. People are there to support one another. And I always think if you get 10 people in a room, everybody has a key to unlock that door, but it's not one person that can unlock that door. And that's why it's about power in numbers with the right numbers. And that sort of, to me, is sort of what's going on tonight as we're drawing to a conclusion in this conversation. So right now we're at 9:57. I want to just run into, Isaac, 2 more questions with you. And then let's go into Twitter Spaces for about maybe another 10, 15 minutes, see if anybody has any questions. But this has been like a phenomenal episode. So here it is. Are there any specific features, mechanisms that Shield3 employs to identify and block bad links? I had to get that word out. Block bad links or malicious websites. And how does the system stay up to date with emerging threats in crypto and the NFT space?
Yeah. So the beauty of integrating on the network level is that even if, let's say, you go to Google, you type in like OpenSea and you get redirected to like OpenSeaApp.com, which is not OpenSea, but like you got a Google ad because somebody fished you and sent you there. Yep. Even if you went there, even if everything looked legit, even if you connected your wallet and signed the transaction that said you were going to like buy the thing for like much cheaper than you expected, even if you go through all those steps, it still gets blocked and intercepted and failed. You don't need so we don't actually need to know like that you're on like fake OpenSea.com. We can look at the addresses that you're interacting with And thanks to like, there's a massive amount of data and bots that that we've developed and that other people have developed to understand the reputation, the score, the likelihood that the address that you're interacting with is legitimate. Most phishing attacks follow the exact same patterns. And so like if you get redirected to like fakeopensea.com, the transaction that they're going to want you to sign, it's probably going to be an ERC20 approval or an ERC 721 approval, or it's just going to be a straight up send all the money out of your wallet. We can look at the transaction that you're doing, the context you're doing it in, who you're doing it with, and it doesn't matter where you are in the web. Like that's how it gets blocked. So it's a massive wealth of data, and also just understanding that most of these attackers are following the same pattern over and over again.
All right, so two last things. What is OTP code?
Oh, that's so the way that we authenticate for the account, we just send you like a challenge code to the email to make sure you control an email. The reason we use email for authentication and not crypto wallets is because we can have many crypto wallets associated with one account. We want to be able to send you notifications. So that's just a way of making sure that you control the email. Also, it's really nice that we don't ever touch your private keys. We don't do any of that. It's just, it's entirely at like a network level. The worst that we can do, what MetaMask will tell you if you're changing your network, the worst that a different network can do is lie to you about the value of something, but it can't ever actually like request anything from you or take your money. So it's a very nice place to be in security wise.
I like that. And then the last thing is you have paid versions. So I have the free version. Free version gives me a certain number of transactions. So just tell us a little bit about the paid versions and why would someone pay for this when you offer it for free? What's the value in the paid versions?
Sure. So what we want to make security completely accessible. I would love to integrate like this protected version of mainnet just as a default wallet in networks. I'm happy to give that away for free. If you want to start receiving notifications or more detailed simulations, or perhaps you want something that's actually learning from your behavior. So it's like, okay, over time, yes, I am someone that consistently does like $5,000-$10,000 transactions, and I don't want you blocking this stuff. That adaptability of the network is something that requires more resources from us, and is something that it comes with with paid versions. But I want to make sure that this is accessible, and I would love that for every wallet to just be able to filter transactions through some sort of free simulation. And then if that's valuable to you, if you want this thing to learn from you and send you useful notifications, that's when we can look at some of the other offerings. But I just first and foremost want to break the established rule where it's like your network doesn't help you at all. Your network just does what you tell it to do, and it doesn't actually assist you. I think that this is a great opportunity to like introduce a place where we can help people to not make mistakes and just feel safer when using crypto.
You know what I think is really cool is how you're building this platform, and it's going to protect a lot. It's going to save people money that they would have lost otherwise. Being part of our JPEG Morgan family, it's been an honor to have you on the podcast today. And I look at how when Ralph Quintero has built the Daily Ralph, that is a free newsletter. He will have in part a paid section. He's developing some other things behind the scenes. So it's really cool to see how that one thing will launch you off into others. And then Sophia, having you on from our On-Chain Monkey community as many times as we've talked last year, I think I was coming off of a cold, wasn't feeling well. And then probably 2 or 3 days later, we got on a Twitter Spaces, and it was an honor, and it's been an honor to have you on today. And I'm so excited for all that you have going on, your future in this space is continually to brighten the lives of others and add value at every corner, and you do that. And just an honor to share this podcast platform with you tonight.
Thank you so much, Craig, and everyone here. It's just been such a fun conversation. And I do want to just make a quick comment to Isaac. CraigO mentioned the importance of simplicity. Earlier, Isaac, you had mentioned like, how do we invite our friends into the space when there's so many risks involved? And I think that what you're doing is really going to contribute towards mainstream adoption in the space, because being able to kind of make the technology become invisible where you don't need to know it, and make it simple and safe for people to transact in the space is just a crucial addition to make this mainstream and to really grow the entire Web3 crypto blockchain space. So thank you so much for what you're doing. I've loved learning about it. And Craig and MetaMatt, as always, amazing host, super entertaining.
Now wait a minute. Before we close out, you've got 3 minutes of Mr. MetaMatt with his rapid fire questions. Oh yeah, we weren't going to let you guys off that hook. No way, Mr.
I was told it's chocolate or vanilla.
Go for
it. All right. Yeah. So I have 2 guests. So I'm gonna make some on the fly here, and the first one's gonna be about a DAO. I'm just curious. This might not be a rapid fire question, but I'm just curious what you're thinking on about the DAO goes when it comes to the voting, like when it comes to how much money someone puts in versus like how many. I guess, like, do you think that someone who has 1 NFT versus 10 NFT should have the same voting power? I guess is the best way of putting it.
I think it depends on what you presented when you initiated the project. If you promise that 1 token is 1 vote, then you need to stick by that. And everyone who comes in knows, the parameters that were set. And that's just being honest and truthful and acting with integrity.
When it comes to wallet security and all this kind of stuff, what do you think for a brand new person in the NFT space? What's the most dangerous thing that somebody could do without having the education behind them?
Issue an NFT approval that can spend all of your tokens. Because it's just way too complicated to know what you're signing. So be very cautious of approvals.
All right, and I know everyone's talking about Pudgy Penguins after this big launch with the the new toys. I know there's a big thing about I believe it was a Moonbirds founder Kevin Rose is talking about comparing VeeFriends to the Pudgy Penguins launch with the different toys. I'm curious what you think. If you could have this, it doesn't matter about the money, the same equivalent, however many Pudgy Penguins or VeeFriends, which one would you back, and which one do you think would be worth more in 5 years? If you have the same amount of worth right now, value right now, which one do you think is going to be more valuable in 5 years' time?
Do you want me to start?
Yeah. Pudgy Penguins or VeeFriends?
Well, I like supporting people. So I really like Gary Vee's vision, perspective, and all of that. And so I would probably back a project that I believed in the people more. And I don't really know much about the Pudgy Penguins team. And so I would probably back VeeFriends.
I would hold ETH.
You wouldn't put mine to either, huh? I would love to know why. Why are you bearish on Gary and Lucas?
It's not a matter of bearish. It's like we talk about like attention, and it's like I don't have like the capacity to even like think about which one of these projects is like thinking about. Like I like ETH.
I'm kind of with you, Isaac. I'm not really following these things, but I do stand by my answer. I like to back people.
All right, so
I think that's a good answer as well.
Off of your answer, then, I guess for a new trader into crypto, like someone who might be into stocks or real estate, or knows investing and is not an amateur when it comes to money and finance, would you suggest getting, if it comes to the DeFi space, would you suggest getting into crypto or into NFTs, which of course is a derivative of crypto?
Should I start?
Either or.
Go ahead, Isaac. You first.
I would say it's most important to actually find an application that you want to use. Like if you're looking at, like, if someone tells you to buy a meme coin, you should know that like the meme coin exists. You're being told to buy the meme coin so that they can build liquidity enough so that the early people can dump on you. Don't just actually try to find a use case that interests you, whether that's like governance of community resources, whether that's doing good things either in your community or globally with the community, like Sophia's talked about today. Like, try to find something that you actually care about, because otherwise you're just going to burn out.
Yeah, I agree with Isaac. I think that the thing I would add to that is don't do anything until you've taken time to learn about it. Like when I got into crypto, I was being pressured because the market was starting to go up so quickly that it was like, buy. And I was like, I'm not going to buy anything that I don't understand. And so really take the time to learn about the variety of options out there, crypto, NFTs, and everything in between. And then make your own choice. And I would say diversify also, and obviously dollar cost average, because as we know, it's so volatile that you may think that you're getting in at a great time, but things change very quickly.
Awesome. That's all I got, Craig. We want to do the Twitter Spaces you were saying next, right?
Yes. Thanks everybody for tuning in. You guys stay tuned on Twitter Spaces. Don't leave. And thanks so much for tuning in. Let's do it.
Thank you so much for watching CraigO's Crypto Corner, the best in Web3, blockchain, NFT, and cryptocurrency technologies. CraigO signing off.